Booktube. This is Leena from Lukunurkka, and this is my Try a Chapter tag. Well, nobody has tagged me, but I stole this from Maija Reads, because my to-be-read shelf is quite full, and I thought this would be a great way to reduce it. The original tag was made by Malia, and I'm gonna put all the links down below. So the basic idea is to take a bunch of books, I chose 7, and try just one chapter of them, and then give you opinions of the book based on that chapter, and also decide whether or not you're gonna continue. I tried to balance my stack a little bit so I would have different things and I would not be reading about the same subject. I have 2 fantasy books, 1 sci-fi, 1 non-fiction book, 1 from South Korea, and 2 that are part of my classic list. I thought that would be good enough variety. Let's go through the fantasy ones first. Here I have A Song Quest by Katherine Roberts. I don't remember when I have bought this, but when I look at it, I can see clearly why I bought this. Because I absolutely love the idea of art as a magic, especially music. And here, in the back of the book, the first paragraph. From idle echoes, the forces of good and evil are held in harmony by those who can hear and sing. I assume this is middle grade book. And here I have Haltiomaan kuninkaantytär, or The King of Elflands' Daughter by Lord Dunsany. This is as classic as fantasy can get. This is free Tolkien, guys. I actually didn't even realize I bought this book, I'm sad to say, mainly because it had this introduction by Neil Gaiman. I was like, maybe it's something along the same feeling as Neil Gaiman. So, for some reason this has just been in my shelf for the longest time, until the history of fantasy and dreamlike fantasy came as a discussion in one group, and then one people was telling about this, and I was like, that name sounds familiar. Why? Then I went home and was like, oh, there he is. I should read that one. But I haven't yet. But as I have said, I have fondness of dreamlike fantasy, and it's always nice to see what is going on before Tolkien, because Tolkien was such a standard setter. Now for the sci-fi book, I have Kvanttivaras by Hannu Rajaniemi, or Quantum Thief. Now, this was a book crossing book, and I have had it for 2 years. Yeah, these are the books that are meant to walk around and go around, not stay on my shelf, but I had just not gotten around to it. Then I have something new from the book event I went to this spring. This is Pidä, huolta äidistä by Kyung-sook Shin. This has been translated to English with the name of Please Look After Mom, and this is from South Korea. Apparently this is a story about when this family's mother disappeared, and while they are looking for her, they find out things that made them question how well they actually knew the mother. So that sounds interesting. Then I have this non-fiction book. Piikojen valtakunta, nainen, työ ja perhe 1600-1700-luvuilla by Tiina Miettinen. This is a non-fiction book about housemaids, I guess is the word, in Finland during 1700s. So, next up is 2 classics. I have Breakfast at Tiffany by J.M Coetzee. I have seen the movie, so this should be familiar. And Youth by J.M Coetzee. I have no idea what this is about. When I was in the library, I recognized the author's name, and because it was quite short looking, I picked it up. Let us see what's going on there. So these are the 7 books I'll be trying. We pick this up later when I have read these first chapters and I have found out what these books are actually about.
So, it's a few days after the last recording and I have read all the first chapters. For anyone who's doing this tag, you may want to check the books beforehand. I started with 7 books, and then I noticed that Breakfast at Tiffany had no chapter dividing, so I had to drop that book out. So I have only 6. Another thing I noticed that there is vast difference about the length of the first chapter. Usually the chapter is around 20 or 30 pages, but then there's one that is 50 pages, there's one that was 87 pages, and on the other hand, there was the one who was like 11. It varies. So the first book I picked up was the Piikojen valtakunta by Tiina Miettinen, and I found the book really easy to read and interesting. It told a lot about how females were and what was their positions and role and opportunities in Finland during that time period. So, because I like this book and it's quite short, I think this is the one I will keep on reading. So, the next one was Song Quest. Like I anticipated, it seems to be middle grade. The main characters are not teenagers yet, and it started with a kind of basic fantasy story start where this main character and their friends are in this school that is in kind of separate area from rest of the world, and then something happens, in this case shipwreck, and there's signs that outside world is infiltrating their peaceful childhood. And this is start of their growing up and learning more of the world and stuff like that. The main character did not leave much impression on me. Even though I said I love the use of music and artistry as magic, in this case they made it mechanical. They had one song for one purpose. There is healing song, there's discipline song, there's fear song, and there's of course death song. Yeah, I was like, misses the point. And not much of a fan of this. I think this is second or third book I have read where this musical magic is taught in an island. Is it because they associate magic music with sirens and mermaids? I go with that theory. Mermaids did not come up yet, but there were signs they were coming up, so yeah. But yeah, I will finish this, but it's not high on my to-do list. Next, I picked up the Pidä, huolta äidistä, where the mother disappears. And I liked this one very much. It was the longest first chapter, over 80 pages. And there's lots of talk about, even though you think you know, you see these little signs and little moments that show you clearly that you don't know them. You don't know your family that well. And this is one subject I have been thinking about myself too. For example, about my grandfather. I knew him for a relatively long time, but still I only knew him after his illness. So when he died and people came to the funeral and they were telling stories about my grandfather, I could not recognize the man in those stories because the grandfather I knew was completely different. I will definitely continue be reading this and discussing it afterward. Then I picked up the classic book of the bunch, Youth by Coetzee, and this has shortest first chapter. And the main thing I got from there how was detached the main character was from everything. Well, lots of things happened to him. For any other person would be, more emotional. And he was like, oh well. So I am sensing the stories about how he grows out of that, I hope. Or he comes to some sort of revelations about himself and the world. This was not that enticing, but since it's so short and it's on my list, I will read this through. But I think I will put other books before this. Then I read Kvanttivaras by Hannu Rajaniemi, and while reading, I remembered I had tried this before. And while I read the first chapter, which was not as far as I had gone before, I remembered why I had not read this before. Because this is the style of sci-fi I had not read. It forced me to pay much closer attention, so I had to focus. And there was a lot of things that I had not encountered before. So the terminology and ideas were like I had to think about them. And I was like, oh, wait, what is this? With fantasy, with the genres I know, my mind makes a shortcuts. It's like, oh, this thing they're describing is like that thing, so it's easier. But now there is something that is completely out of my field, and I'm like, I can read this, and it's not hard, and it's in Finnish, so that helps too, obviously. Still, I need to pay attention. But it was good. Even though it was harder to read, it still made me want to read this. So I will be continuing this. And then the last one, Haltiomaan kuninkaantytär by Lord Dunsany. So after Kvanttivaras, I came to this, and this showed me the difference between those two so clearly. This was so close to the style of original fairy tales I have been reading. But it does make me wonder because all the fairy tales I have read have been shorter ones. So I wonder how the structure and phasing of this book is gonna go because it's longer. It's 227 pages, and I guess most fairy tales I have read would be maybe under 100. I was not as into it as I thought I would be. It may be because the situation where I read this was not suitable for it. So I actually think I may read the first chapter again and look more into it. So, out of this bunch, I will be reading Piikojen valtakunta next, alongside Pidä, huolta äidistä, because those two books were the most interesting and the most impressive of them. I almost forgot. This is a tag video. Well, who could I poke? Let's see. Right. Tanja. Tanja from Tanja Panda. I tag you. Hope you have fun with this. See you later. Bye.